Hello, and welcome back to my channel. If you are new to this channel, my name is Frank Zhu, and I'm a college professor teaching sociology, history, and philosophy. I'm also an award-winning landscape photographer. In the history of philosophy, no other book begins with an opening line as dramatic, sensational, and thought-provoking as The Social Contract, written by Jean-Jacques Rousseau, who wrote, "Man is born free, and everywhere he is in chains." What does this sentence mean? Who was Jean-Jacques Rousseau? And what is this book all about? Jean-Jacques Rousseau was a mid-18th century French philosopher, a contemporary of another famous French philosopher by the name Voltaire. Like Voltaire, Rousseau was also a writer, which explained why he was always seeking dramatic effect in his writings, such as the opening sentence I just quoted. He wrote quite a few books, some of which got him into trouble with authorities, who accused him of heresy. To escape from arrest orders, he had to flee from one place to another from time to time and had to live in England for a while. After he died, he was surrounded by a lot of controversies, largely because of his autobiographical book, The Confessions, which described some of his life events that were considered as unethical and indecent. As a political philosopher, Rousseau was very much influenced by Thomas Hobbes and John Locke, two English political philosophers who were just decades older but were already famous. By the way, I've made a couple of videos about both Thomas Hobbes and John Locke and their philosophical theories. If you are interested, please check them out on my channel. The three of them had very similar opinions about a lot of things. For example, they all used the concept of state of nature to refer to the situation before any authority was established. According to them, in the state of nature, every human being was absolutely free. The purpose of them using the concept of state of nature, I think, was to make 2 points. First, they wanted to show that government was established in an imaginative form of a contract which was agreed to by everyone in the state of nature. According to them, although human beings were absolutely free in the state of nature, they still felt the need for protection because no one was safe when there was no authority. Human beings also felt the need to interact with one another under certain social structure. Therefore, they all agreed to select a person or a group of persons to form a government. Everyone agreed that they would abide by the authority of government in order to live in a peaceful and orderly environment. This idea of government created with the consent of people became known as the social contract theory. It is because of their similar opinions in this respect, the three of them became known as social contract theorists. By the way, for more information about the social contract theory, please check out my videos about Thomas Hobbes and John Locke. The second point, which Hobbes, Locke, and Rousseau wanted to make, which is probably more important, was that the power of government came from people instead of God. At a time when the theory of divine right of kings dominated human thinking, the idea of government created by the consent of people was revolutionary. Before long, the social contract theory became popular and prevailed over the divine right of kings theory. Not only did it provide a kind of legitimacy for government, but it also provided a basis for justifying revolutions against tyrannical governments. If a government did not protect its citizens or violated their rights, citizens had the right to alter or to abolish the government. Ever since the social contract theory, a series of political revolutions took place not only in Europe, but throughout the world. However, not every one of the three agreed with each other on everything. For example, Rousseau was different from Hobbes in one major way. While Hobbes was very pessimistic about human nature, describing the state of nature as brutal and scary and full of killings, Rousseau was optimistic about human nature. For Rousseau, human beings were good by nature. Before a civil society was created, Rousseau argued, people were happy and free and living in the forest. Man is born free in the state of nature, he wrote. However, once they created a government and got out of the forest and entered into society, humans became slaves, Rousseau argued. According to him, as the people built cities and developed social institutions, they also developed vices such as private property. For him, private property was a particularly destructive and selfish institution which would only reward greed and luck. He argued that private property should be regulated to make sure that the common good prevail and excessive gap between the rich and the poor be prevented. It is interesting to note how similar Rousseau was to Karl Marx when it comes to the discussion of private property. Marx, who was the founder of communism, saw private property as the source of all evils and called for the abolishment of it. For more information about Karl Marx, you may want to check out my videos on him on this channel. Rousseau also argued that once human beings entered into civil society, the right of the strongest developed as well, which led to a reign of inequality. The rich and powerful would bully the poor and the weak. In one word, civil society destroyed human original state of happiness and freedom. Human beings became alienated from each other. The society was full of inequality, dependence, violence, and unhappiness. Not only did human beings become unhappy, but also they were bound by various social and institutional constraints. They were not happy anymore in a civil society. That's why he wrote, "Everywhere he is in chains." Now, let's talk about his famous book, The Social Contract, which was published in 1762. The book became one of the most influential works of political philosophy in the Western tradition. It was Rousseau's attempt to find a solution to the problems that he believed existed in human society. Rousseau claimed that he had discovered a way for everybody to work together and keep their own freedom at the same time in society. It is what he called the general will. According to him, general will was different from the particular wills of individuals. It was even not the will of majority. It was always a force of the good and the just. Under general will, no one could do anything without the consent of all. Everyone was totally dependent on everyone else for everything. He argued that when laws were grounded on the general will, freedom and authority were not contradictory to each other anymore. By obeying the law, each individual was actually obeying himself. Rousseau's concept of general will is not without challenges and criticisms. In my opinion, this idea of general will is unclear and ambiguous. In reality, it is impossible to determine what general will is because people are different and they represent different interests. Besides, even though we know what it is impossible to implement it in society because circumstances keep changing. Furthermore, I agree with people who argue that the concept of general will could be used to suppress individual freedom or used to justify a totalitarian regime. Minority opinions could be silenced by those powerful people who claim to represent the general will. As I mentioned earlier, Jean-Jacques Rousseau was also a man of controversies. His life was considered by many as unethical and indecent. For example, he abandoned 5 of his own children to an orphanage, for which he was accused of lacking moral responsibility and contradicting his claimed belief in the natural goodness of humankind. He was also criticized for having love affairs with a series of women and for lacking genuine emotional connection with them. He was accused of manipulating them and disregarding them. According to him, women needed to rely on men for their well-being because they were less rational than men. His book, The Confessions, is often viewed as a self-justification for portraying himself as a victim and a moral hero rather than an honest account of his life. In spite of many criticisms, Jean-Jacques Rousseau was an influential figure in the history of philosophy. His impact on political and social thought was profound. Many people, including myself, especially appreciate his pursuit for reconciliation between government control and individual freedom. His philosophical ideas about the social contract, natural rights, and the importance of individual freedom still resonate nowadays. By the way, not only was he a well-known philosopher, Rousseau was also remembered as a composer and an author of many books about music theory. Well, that is all for today. Thank you for watching this video, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.